Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am super excited to be making this video because in today's video we're going to be discussing some new information that we have about Gray Zone Warfare. There is a lot to unpack and a lot of it focuses on the setting and the story behind Gray Zone Warfare, what we can expect in the actual world, some of the information about the characters, the factions, enemy types, all kinds of stuff. There's a ton to unpack here, so let's go ahead and dive in. So first of all, before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Gray Zone Warfare team for allowing me to have access to this information to make this content for you guys. In all my interactions with them, they have been amazing, and I'm super excited for this game. And I can tell you, just from the few interactions that I have had, is that this is a team that is super passionate about the game that they're making, and I can't wait to see what they do. And I hope by the end of this video, you're just as excited as I am about the future of Gray Zone Warfare. So at the beginning of the video, I put a little quote from Sean McFate. If you're not sure who that is, Sean McFate is a military expert, he's an author, he's a professor, and a strategic analyst, and he's a close contact of the team at Gray Zone Warfare, who has been involved with a lot of the story of the game, a lot of the different elements to make sure that it's accurate to what PMCs actually do, which is super exciting that they have someone with like firsthand experience to actually give them insight on things like that. But Rick, the head of communications for Gray Zone Warfare, did an interview with Sean, and we actually got access to watch that interview. And one of the biggest things that came out of the interview is where the name Gray Zone Warfare actually comes from, which is super interesting. So the quote at the beginning will hopefully give a little insight into why the game is named what it is, because we'll essentially be taking part in Gray Zone Warfare, which is an actual term used for the warfare that essentially occurs between war times. So when you're not necessarily at war with anyone, but you're not necessarily at peace either. It's the warfare that happens behind the scenes, that happens through these PMC contractors that no one really hears about. So it's super interesting stuff. If you guys are interested, I can definitely make a video talking a little bit more about that interview, showing some clips from it, things like that. We do have access to it, so if you want to see it, let me know. But I figured I would hit kind of the highlight of it for me, which was that quote where he talks a little bit about what Gray Zone Warfare actually is. So to kick things off, let's go ahead and talk about the setting of the game, a little more about this fictional country, some of the events that have transpired, and where we find ourselves as the player in all of this chaos. So the name of the country in which Gray Zone Warfare takes place is Lemang, or the Democratic Republic of Lemang. Its location is somewhere in Southeast Asia. It has a population of about 74,470 and is currently ruled by President Narith Soyavong. Lemang is a former British colony, and it gained its independence in 1948, but was ravaged by a brutal civil war 20 years later when the remnants of an anti-British resistance, known as the SOL, the Sons of Lemang, were dissatisfied with the independent government's rule. Due to the official army being understaffed, untrained, and equipped with outdated weapons and gear, they were swiftly defeated after only a couple months of fighting the SOL. The commander of the Sons of Lemang, Raxmay Sayavong, then declared himself the supreme leader of the island with the title of president. The SOL victory was made possible thanks to the help of the Soviets, who supplied them with weapons in exchange for strengthening their position during the Vietnam War. Building various military installations all over Lemang, a small contingent of Soviet troops remained on the island even after the end of the conflict, and finally left after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. After Raxmay Sayavong died in a car accident in 1996, his only son, 28-year-old Narith, became the new leader of the island. With Narith taking over, he promised the people of Lemang that he would end his father's isolationism policies and bring the island into the next millennium through modernization and openness. With the financial support of the Soviet Union now gone, he claimed to focus on tourism instead and ordered the construction of his crowning jewel, the Midnight Sapphire, a luxurious resort where, legend has it, all was allowed for the right price. During the next 3 decades, those few who managed to escape the island told a vastly different story and pleaded with the rest of the world for help until finally the UN decided to act and establish the UNLRA, the United Nations Lemang Relief Agency, to provide at least a modicum of assistance to the oppressed people. With Narith's hesitant approval, the UNLRA arrived in Lemang to assess the situation and begin its humanitarian mission. Then, just a few months later, a disaster struck. With a blinding flash and a thunderous roar, a part of the island was forever transformed by a sudden, cataclysmic event. Official channels cryptically spoke of an unspecified environmental disaster, while a plethora of far-fetched theories and uncovered truths scoured the World Wide Web and beyond. A volcano erupting, a chemical factory exploding, a nuke going off, a satellite crashing, secret experiments gone terribly wrong, a meteorite impact, and the always popular aliens were just a few of these theories. But ultimately, it will be up to the players to find out what happened for themselves. One thing is certain, all hell broke loose in Lemang after the event. Mass hysteria and panic ensued. The UNLRA mounted evacuation missions to get as many people off the island as possible. However, due to the chaos of the event and panic raging throughout the entire region, clashes between UNLRA and LAF, the Lemang Armed Forces, occurred, and some were left behind to fend for themselves. Following evacuation missions, the entire area has been put under international quarantine, with all UN members agreeing not to trespass. With the island practically abandoned, many organized crime groups, pirates, and other lowlifes gathered in Lemang to plunder what was left, or even claim the island entirely, engaging in skirmishes with Lemang armed forces, who were ordered to stay behind and guard high-value targets. The first PMC arrived shortly after, followed soon by 2 others. After establishing a foothold in the region, they all started advancing towards what was now known as Ground Zero. A series of well-coordinated strikes, far too professional for the bandits roaming the island or even the LAF, was then launched against the PMCs, and they lost almost all of their previously taken territory. Suffering heavy casualties and loss of equipment, the PMCs started recruiting new soldiers of fortune to help them retake the region, assume full control of Ground Zero, and complete any tasks from the myriad of clients with some stakes in the area. The player, a former member of Special Operation Forces, is one of these new recruits. So as a player, you'll find yourself a member of one of these 3 PMCs who have now been pushed back through the territory that they once held, and your mission will now be to push forward to Ground Zero. So we do have a little bit of information about the 3 different PMC groups. They do have varying backstories and different starting positions on the map, but as of right now, as far as early access goes for the game, those will be the only 2 differences between them. In the future, they may have different quest lines, different characters they can interact with, things like that, but for right now, the only major difference is that their backstories are different and they start at different places on the map. So the 3 different PMC groups we have are the Lemang Recovery Initiative, the Mithras Security Systems, and the Crimson Shield International. As of right now, I'm planning to do maybe a further breakdown on each PMC group's backstory in a different video, but for right now, those are the 3 different PMC groups that we know of. Next, we can talk about some of the characters in the game. Right now, it looks like these characters will be traders similar to the Escape from Tarkov trader system. So these are some of the characters that we can expect to see in Gray Zone Warfare, and these will be characters that you can interact with, take quests from, things like that. So the first one is Anton Jackson, better known as Gunny. Gunny is a retired US Marine Corps gunnery sergeant. Gunny is an awkward character who doesn't seem to like much of anything or anyone. However, he's extremely good at what he does, hence why the PMC recruited him to help run their operation. And if part of that job means looking after the company's PMC operators, then that's what he's going to do to the best of his abilities. Next is Laya Huang, or Artisan. Artisan has worked at her father's workshop since she was a little girl, learning all there is to know about machines and how they work. She blames the UNLRA for the chaos their arrival caused, and thinks of the PMCs as opportunistic vultures, scavenging whatever remains of value in her country. Despite this animosity, she offered her services as a mechanic. Naturally reserved and wary of others, gaining her trust could prove challenging. However, once earned, her expertise and knowledge of Lemang could become a pivotal asset. And lastly, we have James Miller, known as Banshee. For Banshee, the turbulent events unfolding in Lemang were akin to a gold rush. The widespread chaos proved to be a lucrative market for his trade, attracting a surge of potential clients in dire need of his merchandise. Unfettered by moral reservations, Banshee operates under a simple yet effective principle. Anyone with the means to pay is a potential collaborator. He gladly brings in possible business partners for his various plans, setting up deals that promise gains for everyone involved. So that's just a little bit about each of the traders that you can expect to see, each of them having different backgrounds, different interests, different motives, things like that. So that may reflect in the different quests that you can receive from them. And hopefully as you do quests for them, it can kind of evolve the relationship that you have with that character. So one thing I'm super excited about is to see how the quest system works and how it will actually play out in Gray Zone Warfare when you actually get your hands on it. We do have some information about how the quests will work, so we can talk about that right now. It does seem to have a similar format to Escape from Tarkov, but one thing that is a little unique, and one thing that I'm glad that they pointed out, is that they specifically mentioned that they don't want players to have to go into the world to find, X pieces of Y or a certain number of this, or almost like nonsensical items that don't really have any meaning. Obviously, Tarkov had like the hideout and things like that, so like some things were important, but ultimately with Gray Zone Warfare, they don't want you going out to find, whatever just for the sake of finding something. They want it to actually have meaning and be of value. So the emphasis when designing quests is on realism and internal logic. Also, since they're focused on the living open world aspect of the game, there are no set spawns or events that will always happen during a specific quest. So A simple recon mission may be a walk in the park for one squad, but it might be a gunfight and a bloodbath for others, because maybe one squad was ambushed by an enemy patrol, maybe one squad just had the luck of not running into anybody. That way it's a unique experience for each group as they go out and try to complete these quests, which I think is super awesome. I think that's a really awesome dynamic way to play, and I think it will create a really awesome feeling not knowing what could happen and also not being able to anticipate something happening every single time, so that each experience is unique. Another thing we know is that they don't want to handhold. They want players to use their intelligence. They want them to use the resources that they have to complete the quests in whatever way works best for them. So don't expect any massive waypoint markers guiding you step by step. Don't expect any just super obvious hints, things like that. You'll have to read your briefings carefully, familiarize yourself with the land, and execute your plan in order to complete the quest. One thing that is going to be super interesting to see is they have implemented branching decisions. Let's say you accept a quest from Gunny, and during that quest, Artisan or Banshee chime in and say, hey, if you actually want to do this instead, I'll give you this reward. And it might be a different reward from what you were originally going to get. It might be a better reward, but like the moral side of it, maybe you don't agree with what they want you to do, so you're not sure if it's worth the reward. It'll create kind of a unique experience where you might originally go out thinking you're going to be doing one thing, when suddenly another opportunity presents itself, and then you have a decision to make. Completing the quests and choosing with whom to cooperate will also shift your reputation as a player. Similar to a reputation system in Tarkov with different traders, your reputation with each character may differ depending on the quests that you do and depending on the choices you make when other opportunities arrive. One thing that is awesome is that we as players can look forward to around 150 quests at early access launch of Grayzone Warfare, with more being added over time. So that's no small number. That'll be a lot of quests to get through, a lot of things to do just in the early access stage. And as more are added, we can have even more of those unique experiences. So as of right now, I think that is all the information that I have about the story and the lore of Grayzone Warfare, a little bit more about the functionality of traders and that kind of thing. So with that being said, I am super curious to know your thoughts as you've been watching the video, things that you're thinking about, questions you have. Definitely let me know in the comments below. I will try to answer any questions with the knowledge that I have. Obviously, we don't have all the answers to everything yet, but as the months go on, we'll continue to get more information from the Grayzone Warfare team, which I am super excited about. I've loved all the information that I've seen and that I've read, so I am hopeful for the future of this game. I know a lot of times with games like this, it can be easy to be skeptical, and I think we have every reason to be with some of the releases that have happened recently. But for what it's worth, if you can trust my opinion anyway, trust my judgment from the interactions that I've had with the team over at Grayzone Warfare, I do think that they are passionate about giving us a good experience. And with each content drop, I can tell that they care about the story, they care about the game, and ultimately they care about us as players. They want us to have a good time, they want us to have a good experience. So I am hopeful, and I hope that makes you hopeful. But with all that being said, I'll just reiterate again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm always genuinely curious to know what you think, what your thoughts are, because we all have different opinions, different things, and there's plenty of things that I'm sure you're thinking of that I'm not. So definitely let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're looking forward to Grayzone Warfare. As I get more information, I will give it to you as soon as possible. So again, thank you all so much for the support, and as always, good hunting.